Presley, and I'd like to welcome you to the Donna Presley YouTube channel. Did Elvis Presley ever give permission for his private life to be public? There is assumption made that very few people ever stop to question. It is the assumption that because Elvis was famous, his private life somehow became public property, that his relationships, his struggles, his inner world were automatically open for discussion, interpretation, and retelling by others. Over the years, it has often been said that Elvis would not have minded, that he would not have cared if people spoke openly about his private life or revealed personal details about who he was. That claim has been repeated often, but when you look closely at Elvis's own decisions, not what others later claimed, a very different picture emerges. We cannot claim to know Elvis's private thoughts. No one can. But we can be clear about his intent. And intent is shown not only in words, but in consistent behavior over time. In his own words, Elvis once said something very simple and very revealing. The image is one thing, and the human being is another. That was not a casual remark. It was a boundary. Elvis understood that the public had access to the image, the performer, the music, the stage. But the human being behind that image was something different, something personal. And his life reflected that distinction across more than 20 years at the very center of global attention. Elvis Presley was not simply famous. He was by any measure the most recognizable person in the entire world. If anyone had both the opportunity and the incentive to explain himself publicly, it was Elvis. And yet, over the course of that entire career, he consistently chose not to. Elvis did interviews, but they were controlled, limited, and focused almost entirely on his work. He did not sit for long, probing conversations about his private life. He did not engage in extended personal storytelling. He did not turn interviews into confessions. At no point did he decide to set the record straight by revealing his inner life. He never wrote a memoir. He never authorized a tell-all. He never commissioned an autobiography. He never publicly narrated his romantic relationships. He never monetized his private struggles. As the years went on, long-form interviews became common. Personal revelation became fashionable. Confession became profitable. Elvis watched that cultural shift happen around him. Still, he did not participate, even when silence worked against him, even when misunderstanding followed him, even when others filled the space he deliberately left open. That matters because privacy is not proven by a single statement. It is proven by consistency over time. Elvis could have lived anywhere in the world. If he had wanted constant exposure, Hollywood was ready for him. Los Angeles offered industry power, proximity, and an environment built on access. But Elvis chose Memphis. He chose to live away from Hollywood culture, away from an industry that thrives on visibility, disclosure, and personal exposure. That choice alone tells us something important about how he viewed his life beyond the stage. He also chose who surrounded him. Elvis kept his family close. He surrounded himself with people he had known for years, many of whom worked for him. That was not because he needed to employ them. It was because he trusted them. People often ask why Elvis preferred that kind of circle. The most human answer is trust, familiarity, a belief that those closest to him pose less threat to his privacy than outsiders or industry insiders. It would be unrealistic to pretend that everyone Elvis trusted honored that trust in the same way. Some people who were close to him later chose to share far more than he ever shared himself. In that sense, trust may at times have been misplaced. But misplaced trust is not the same as permission. What matters is not what others later claimed Elvis would have been comfortable with. What matters is what Elvis himself chose to do while he was alive. And his choices were remarkably consistent. He absorbed misunderstanding rather than explain himself. He tolerated distortion rather than expose his inner life. He protected his family, and especially his child, from becoming part of a public narrative. People who want their private lives known speak. They clarify. They explain. They tell their story. Elvis did not, and that matters, because what followed after his death was not the continuation of a story he chose to tell. It was replacement. Others began to speak for him, to interpret what he never authorized, to reveal what he consistently withheld. Elvis did not assert privacy through protest or anger. He asserted it through refusal, through restraint, through consistency, through choices that were visible to anyone willing to look. He chose Memphis over Hollywood. He chose family over industry access. He chose silence where confession would have been rewarded. Elvis did not hide his intentions. He lived them, quietly and in plain sight. The evidence was always there, refined rather than dramatic. We only miss it when we mistake silence for consent. Elvis Presley chose silence over self-exposure. A man who refused that license for himself would not have authorized it for others, regardless of their closeness to him. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for listening. And until next time, God bless.